Hi friends, it's Carl here with another edition of Calm Survival, and we're just going to talk a little bit about cost, expensive stoves, cheap stoves, and just how to make that decision a little bit. Now, from our previous video, I said that this was a cheap knockoff, and it really is. The build quality is extremely poor compared to the original, and it was honestly about a tenth the price. Now, is it a tenth as good? Um, I would say it's less than a tenth as good. I only use this in, outside. It's basically my Bunsen burner for projects. I don't trust this fuel line really at all. I don't really trust this rotating coupling because I don't really know how it's sealed in there. This whole thing threads apart and it will just through heat contraction and expansion, it has loosened itself up. Obviously the stove supports bend quite easily. They don't ever quite sit right. Now, why is this important? Because you can spend a little or you can spend a lot. When we're looking at buying any of these products, we always have that temptation of, well, I can buy the expensive, I can pay the MSR price tag. Not gonna lie, this stuff is not cheap, and especially if you're outside the US, it can be very expensive. Even counting for exchange rate, for me to get this in Australia compared to the US, I'm paying a premium. Even once it's converted, I'm still paying extra for the import fees and things like that. But why? One, every country has rules on what is a permissible design, what is the permissible standard. And if you jump on AliExpress or Wish.com, you can get any of those things. They may not match that standard. Now, if you understand those standards and you know what kind of loopholes they've gone through, or you know how they've adapted things, hey, you're an adult, that's on you. But if you don't, you could find yourself in a situation where the piece of equipment you're relying on just turns into a flamethrower. And that's definitely not ideal. That's not something we want to have. So we want to be making sure that we have a good understanding. That takes effort. That effort's already been done by those regulatory bodies. So if we decide that, again, we're going to spend the big money on the big brand, we are buying a bit of that reputation. So make sure that you're checking, make sure that you are buying as honestly as you can. Obviously, when it comes to knockoffs, be careful. There's a lot of stuff that you will spend near the price on that is not going to be nearly as good. I bought this knowing it was cheap garbage. If you want to buy cheap garbage, you can do that. But if this had been branded as a Kovia Moonwalker and I spent half the price of a proper Kovia, I'd have been pretty upset because this is junk. And obviously, companies do work hard on maintaining their brand identity and things like that. And yeah, the anti-corporatist in me really struggles, but buying the cheap knockoff does not make that situation better. I can probably guarantee that the person who had to assemble this was living in poorer conditions than the person who had to assemble the other three stoves here. Look, it's complicated. Be careful. Make sure you're doing your bit when you're buying your equipment to make sure that it's fit for purpose. All right. That's been another edition of Calm Survival. Join us again soon.